So welcome everyone to this Instagram Live. We are going to be discussing today a recent project that we completed, a recent investment a property we just sold. We took it the full lifespan, I should say, from purchase, renovation, stabilization, full lease up. We refinanced it, then we sold it. We closed the escrow, I think about 2-3 weeks ago. And we're here to tell you about the experience, the investment, and how things turned out.
Beautiful.
Yes.
So this was a deal, 724 Ashland in Santa Monica, 4 units. We bought it back in 2018, and it was an interesting time, right? This was the era of Prop 10, which was the first onset of potential vacancy control, expansion of rent control in the state of California. And this is in Santa Monica, right, which is historically, Santa Monica, West Hollywood are the strictest with rent control. So it was, a lot of sellers were getting antsy, a little scared, nervous about, what laws are going to happen, go into effect. Buyers were saying, why would I buy in Santa Monica? Somebody moves out paying $600 and I can only charge $650, makes no sense. So we saw this as an opportune time to get the right assets that fit our business model, but also factor in Prop 10 is going on, so we're going to be more conservative on pricing, and hopefully the timeline. And I know you were more involved in this, is the time frame of our due diligence period overlapping with Prop 10 to be able to hedge if vacancy control went into effect.
Yeah, essentially in any marketplace you have risk and reward. So people are going to take bigger risks if they feel that there's bigger rewards to justify the risk, and that's basically what we saw here. Was that there was a lot of investors were getting out of the game, so to speak. They weren't buying; they were scared of Prop 10 passing, and we basically were able to get into escrow on this property on 724 Ashland. It was the right seller profile. It was a long-term owner who I had coincidentally met with off of a cold call about 9 years ago.
That's funny.
And coincidentally, we didn't end up representing him in the sale. A Coldwell Banker broker, represented the owner in the sale. And it's a small world. These things kind of happen. You meet with someone, and then next thing you know, not next thing you know, but 9 years later,
next thing
you know, right? 9 years later, you're buying their building. So it was a great time as a buying opportunity, again, because there was a lot of buyers that were on the sidelines and were waiting for the election results. We happened to get into escrow about 10 or 14 days prior to the election, and so our contingency period did not actually lapse until after the election. So we were able to get in at a low price, and then our contingencies were not due to be removed until after the election results came out. So we're able to mitigate that risk.
For sure.
Again,
give credit to Chris in our office. Yes. How long was the deal on the market? Do you remember?
It was not very long.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly how many days.
But follow up, staying on top of it and getting it to the point where, hey, the seller was ready to meet the market, who, we were the market at that point.
Right.
And got it under contract for us so that we could, move forward on this project, at least, get into the escrow period.
Yeah, I don't think we were actually the highest paying buyer on the table, but we did have a strong proof of funds, a strong track record, and a lot of confidence that we were going to close the transaction. And the seller chose our offer because of that, because the seller wanted to know, hey, I'm getting into bed with a group that is going to perform in bed.
Is that your saying now?
That's the saying. That's how the saying goes.
And what I want to say about this property of hey, what was our business plan is, it's west of Lincoln. It's less than 7 blocks to the beach in prime Santa Monica, Ocean Park, Santa Monica. And these were about 950 square foot 2 beds that we saw, hey, we can make these 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So a 2-bed may rent for, $3,500-$3,800 in this location. We'll get into the leasing, but by converting the 3 beds, hey, maybe we can get $5,000, $5,500 for them. So
yeah, and that was also part of the challenge of the property was how are we going to convert these into 3 beds, given that they were about 900 square feet. Definitely a very functional size for a 2-bedroom unit, but to turn into a 3-bedroom, it's a little tight. So a lot of that goes into design. It goes into working with the right architect, the right designer that knows how to configure the apartment to fit 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. And at the end of the day, there's something's got to give, right? Because if you're starting with 900 square feet and you're ending with 900 square feet, you're not adding square footage. So something's got to give. And in this case, we were increasing the bedroom and bathroom count from 2-bed, 1-bath to 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And so the common area space was the part of the apartment that had to give, so to speak. And the way that we did that was by opening the kitchen, opening the floor plan to make it into one large great room, putting the washer dryer into a closet on a stackable washer dryer to save some space. Open floor plan, open kitchen concept, high-end appliances, and yeah, the bedrooms did lose some square footage. And so the 2 bathrooms were not huge. They were functional, decent size, and great for roommates. But like I was saying before, there's always, when you're starting with the same amount of square footage and ending with the same amount of square footage, and you're increasing the bedroom and bathroom count, then clearly something's got to give. Is the name of the game.
Definitely, but we saw that value, and it's what we do a lot of, right? We see, we've talked about this in some of our other Instagram lives, is we go in to the inspection, walking the property, saying, well, can we add outdoor space? Can we reconfigure the layouts? Can we add bedrooms, bathrooms? Like, what can we do to the property to bring more value? Not just to the income, but like the people that we're going to lease to, right? What's going to make this attractive to the tenant base that's going to be living here for the next, 2, 5, 10, 15 years? We closed with a bridge loan. It was an aggressive bridge loan. 80% loan to cost. The interest rate was pretty high though, right? If I remember. Which also presented a challenge, because when you're doing construction for a year, your carry cost is higher, right? If you're paying 3.5% on a loan today on a conventional financing,
we won at 275.
Even better. It's like, okay, like you can live with that, but when you're paying 6-7% on a bridge loan, this was 2 years ago when bridge financing was more expensive, and you have to carry the building while you're doing construction. It can be a burden, and it puts pressure on sticking to the timeline, getting it done. And one of these other challenges is dealing with the city of Santa Monica. It's tough when you're pulling all these permits, changing the plumbing, changing the electrical. You were doing the soft story at the same time.
Right. We actually had a toilet that we had to replace a few times because the inspector said it didn't flush too much. That one flushed too much. That one not enough. And so we had to get the right amount of flushing capacity in the toilet. So it's always the small things. The devil's in the details, and that's why it's so important to have a contractor who is focused on the project and who pays attention to the details. On this particular project, we picked a contractor who came recommended, who ended up doing a great job with the actual construction, but we had some fund control issues. Not going to get into the details, but basically wasn't the most trustworthy person dealing with funds. So towards the end of the project, as we were wrapping up some of the loose ends and some of the bigger payments were coming up, we decided to fund the subcontractors directly as opposed to funneling it through the general contractor. So there's a lot of details to pay attention to, from the design, who you're working with as a general contractor, who the subs are, what type of work are they doing, is the money going to the right places, and are the bills real bills, or so we ran into a lot of those obstacles on this construction project, and it was definitely a learning experience, and we learned a lot. We did great, and we ended up leasing out the units very successfully. We got some great rents, some great tenants in there. I think they're very happy still, even after the close. You want to talk about the leasing process? Yeah, sure.
So, it's very area specific, right? It's the same thing with how we buy properties, how we project, what our rents are going to be, where we can exit, what's our cash flow going to be. It's the same thing with the vendors we use, right? Who's going to be the right fit for the area, for the job. And when you're dealing with such a high-end market, you need somebody who's going to be able to sell the product, because look, we got $5,000 for these 3 beds. So you need somebody who's going to be able to sell that to the right people, bring in, whether it's going to be roommates or a family, young people in tech. You need to be able to to lease it for the price that's going to make sense for the money that we spent. And so we went with a high end. She does residential, I think.
A lot of residential.
A lot of residential, and so she knew the area very well. Now look, we paid her more than we would pay another leasing agent, but our goal was, hey, we're willing to spend the money if it pays us back. And it did. I think it worked out very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we ended up using a leasing agent who lives in the area, who works in the area, basically is a Santa Monica, Venice personality, and was able to, not just sell the location, but really know where the hotspots are, know what's walkable, what's in walking distance, where can you skateboard to, where can you, what are the best surf spots, the best parts of the beach, and someone who has those intimate details, the intimate knowledge of, and can bring value to the tenant base. Tenants are going to appreciate that because they're going to say, hey, this is not just someone who's here to sign a lease with me, but it's actually someone who's going to tell me where to go, where the hotspots are, and kind of give me some of the tricks of the trade, so to speak, of living in that particular neighborhood. So we found it to be really important and beneficial to work with a leasing agent who knew the details of the micro location as well as the macro area.
Yeah, and it was so important, right? Like I said, we're in this bridge loan, we're paying interest, we're carrying the building.
Yep.
We need to get the leasing going. And then there's the maturity factor of the loan, right? If it's coming due in 12 months, 18 months, 24, you have to get the units leased out so that you can refi into regular perm financing or potentially sell, versus the fees are so high to extend some of these loans. So we were getting caught in that time frame, which made it so important to get these units leased out, have income start coming in to cover the carry costs, but then also be able to time up a refinance.
That was honestly a nail biter dealing with the financing, because when we refied the building, which was, I think it was around 6 months ago.
Yes.
The debt markets specifically for 4-unit multifamilies, right?
Yeah.
It was a horrible time.
Non-existent.
Yeah, he's laughing at me because I was on the hook for it, but but the debt market for refinancing, specifically 4-unit multifamilies that are non-owner occupied, meaning that they're investment properties, very tough, very
and
tough.
the value of this property.
Right.
It's like if you're gonna go refinance, $1 million 4-unit, okay, but when you're talking about a $3.5 million property.
Mm-hmm.
In March, April, in the prime, peak pandemic, time frame, like
yeah,
we were juggling that.
And this was not something that we could have anticipated, because again, we bought this property 26 months ago, 28 months ago, whatever it was, and no one knew COVID was coming. No one anticipated these kinds of financing obstacles that we faced. So what we ended up doing is we went to a lender that we do a lot of banking with. Mm-hmm. We have a few accounts with them, and we explained to them the situation. We explained to them the asset, what we did to reposition the property. We showed them location. We showed them the rents that we were getting. And even though it wasn't a grand slam refinance in terms of proceeds, in terms of the loan amount that we got, we still were able to lock in a 3% or 3.25% interest rate. Mm-hmm. And what that did is it paid off our hard money loan, which, like you said, was coming to maturity, and we needed to pay that off. So we had this, we had a local bank do our financing for the refinance, and that basically, at that point, we were good. We knew, hey, we can breathe. We have a 3.25% interest rate. We have 20 grand or so a month coming in, 19,500, whatever it was a month coming in rents. And we said, you know what, this is great. We're cash flowing. At that point, we said we're going to put the property on the market, see what type of pricing we can get. We put it on the market for just under 3.5 million. We sold it for just under 3.4 million. And Max will talk about the buyer that came to the table to buy it.
Yeah, for sure. So, somebody who's going to buy this asset is somebody says, hey, I don't want to do any work. I just want to cash flow. What was interesting is it was a buyer that came with a broker that we know very well. And we had actually offered on their building. They were looking to get out of their building that they had minimal debt on because they wanted to increase their cash flow. And so now here was an opportunity. We ended up not buying it, which would have been even funnier, right? But they closed that property, closed their down leg, and Ashland was their up leg, so it's what they were replacing. And they increased their NOI, or their income, their cash flow. I think it was like 3-4 times, but this was a perfect asset, and this is what we do a lot, is you fix them up, you clean up these properties, have very steady, stable income, so that when a buyer comes and says, hey, I don't want to do the work, I don't want to do the construction, I don't want to deal with the refinance and the bridge loan and the contractor and the whatever it is, right? And the toilets, the flush, the no flush, the minimal flush. I want to put my cash in here. I want to get a medium low leverage loan, and I want to cash flow. I want to sit back and just, collect the income every month.
That's right. And the buyers actually took over the management company that we were using because we work with the management company a lot. We wanted them to continue on the building, so we gave them a big endorsement for their services. And like you said, the buyer was a classic 1031 exchange buyer. They had actually inherited a property in not the best part of town, with definitely some tenant issues, some deferred maintenance issues. Building was not cash flowing very well. It had a lot of upside, which is why we liked it and we offered on it. We did get outbid on it, so can't win them all, but we did win on this sale. I think it was a win-win. I do think it was a win-win because they inherited a property that was not for them. It just wasn't for them. Maybe it was, for their parents. Maybe their parents were fine with it, but the children who inherited it, professionals that knew that real estate is a good long-term investment, especially in well-located areas. Sorry, I can't talk today. But real estate is a great long-term investment, especially in prime locations such as Santa Monica, specifically being west of Lincoln Boulevard, and very high barriers of entry, meaning it's not, not everyone can just go out and, you can't go to Santa Monica and just build 1,000 units, although right now with the portfolio on the market, you could, but it's not every day that you have the opportunity to just increase the supply of Santa Monica apartments or West LA apartments significantly. So it's a high barrier of entry market. You have supply constraints, very hard to build. And these people are not real estate professionals, right? They are professionals, but in other sectors. So they wanted a building, prime location, turnkey condition, management in place, good cash flow, very high probability that you're going to have appreciation, and an easy building with good quality tenants. And it was a good deal for them because of all those attributes, and it was a good deal for us because we basically maximize the building to its full potential, and that's really our business plan, is take the buildings from A to Z or Z to A, however you want to look at it, and then once we're at that finish line, we will sell it to someone who has a higher higher and better use of the property than we do, so to speak.
Definitely, and what I love about this property, besides the way the rehab turned out and the project, is like it was a perfect example of how and why we acquire properties, how we create value, how we set up the financing, the challenges we overcome, the rehab, like every aspect of it, of acquisition, reposition, rehab, disposition, the financing, like this is what we do, and we executed on it. We're our investors are very happy. We're very happy that we perform for these investors. I think that's always so important for us, is making sure that whatever outcome we have, it's in line or exceeds our investors' expectations.
That's the goal. Always and always.
If there's any questions. Do you have anything else to say?
I don't. I'm actually speechless.
Okay. No, I think we're good. Yeah.
Thank you all for watching. It's been a pleasure talking to you about 724 Ashland, the reposition process of one of TGG's many multifamily assets within core Los Angeles. We look forward to all of your feedback, questions, comments, concerns, and anything else you have to tell us. We look forward to you joining us in 2 weeks on Thursday at 5:30.
Perfect.